Hey, welcome to Therapy by Gabby. I'm Gabby. I'm a licensed professional counselor practicing in the state of Wisconsin, and I talk about things for therapists, therapy goers, and the mental health experience in general. In today's video, I'm going to be answering some commonly asked questions about therapy, and if you follow me on TikTok, you know that occasionally I do Q&As over there, and I just have people ask me questions and then I make video responses. And so some of this might be a little repetitive if you already follow me over on TikTok. If you don't follow me over on TikTok, you should check me out. As long as the app doesn't get banned, fingers crossed. It's the same username, Therapy by Gabby, and I post a lot more content over on there. Before we dive into answering these questions, please keep in mind that therapy and mental health is a complex and nuanced space, and that every therapist is going to practice different, have different perspectives, different theoretical orientations, and that every person is going to need their own unique individualized treatment. So my answers are going to be very generalized and will not apply to every single person. So please keep that in mind. We're going to use our best discernment to assess what feels right for us. And, if it doesn't apply for us, then it's not meant for us, okay? I'm going to answer these questions in no particular order. Let's go ahead and jump into it. So the first question is, how often should I be going to therapy? Again, this is going to depend on each individual person. I am going to tell you how I practice. Other therapists may practice differently and have different policies within their practice, depending on different theoretical orientations or just what works for them in their schedule. When I meet with a new client, I always ask them, how often are you hoping to come to therapy? And a lot of times what I hear back is, one, I've never done this before, so I don't know, you tell me. Or two, when I did this before, this is how often I went then, but now I'm just really not sure, so what do you think? And this is what I typically say. It is my ethical responsibility to tell you what the recommendation is. And when we're first starting out, my recommendation is weekly to bi-weekly sessions, just because we are still getting to know each other and building the relationship and building the rapport. And the therapeutic relationship is the most important part of people making progress and achieving their goals. And so that is my ethical responsibility to provide that recommendation. And you also have the power to choose. So if that doesn't feel right for you and there's, a different frequency that you want to consider, let's negotiate that space together. Now, that being said, there might be certain clinical circumstances where a client's like, well, I don't want to see you once a week or once every 2 weeks. I was hoping just to do once a month. And if there are certain clinical concerns that we talked about where that just would not be appropriate, then I'm going to have that conversation with them and say, even though I want to respect that, given what you have shared with me today, it would not be ethical or effective treatment. So how can we work together on this? What would you be willing to do that might be closer to my recommendation? So again, this is where it's important to keep in mind that therapy is very individualized treatment, and some people will really benefit from once a week, once every 2 weeks. Other people are at a different stage of healing. They might have done a lot of therapeutic work up to this certain point, and now they benefit from maybe only going once a month, once every 2 months. So there's a lot of variables at play here, which is why we have to keep in mind this is a very nuanced space and everyone is going to need something different. Moving on to the next question. If I ghost my therapist, can I reach back out later if I want to return for therapy? Yes, you can always reach back out to your therapist. Now, I'll tell you what I do, and just a quick disclaimer, just because you can reach out to your therapist doesn't mean they will have availability. So we have to keep that in mind, and I'll talk about that here in a second. When I haven't seen a client in a while, what I do is I send them a letter in the client portal that says something along the lines of, hey, I haven't seen you in a bit and I just want to check in. Please let me know if you'd like to schedule something. If I don't hear from you by this date, I'm going to assume that you're no longer interested in therapy and I'm going to close your file. That being said, please know you are welcome to reach back out after I close your file if you would like to return for therapy. I also include some referrals in that letter just in case they're considering other options, like maybe we weren't a good match or they had some feelings about me that they didn't explicitly share or that I didn't catch on to. And I want them to have other resources, and that's why I add those referrals in there. And also it's just best practice to do that. So in that letter, I let them know that even though I haven't heard from them, even if they haven't made any contact with me, they can still reach back out at a later time. Now, that being said, if they decide to return for treatment and they reach back out, even if I do want to work with them, my schedule might be full, I might have a wait list, some other circumstances might be happening where I just cannot take on any more clients. And so even though they could reach back out to me, because I don't have the availability, I would have to provide them with referrals to, potentially see somebody else. So long story short, yes, even if you ghosted your therapist, you can still reach back out, and there might be a chance that their schedule is booked up. Also, sorry about the lighting. I feel like it keeps going in between having some decent light to being gloomy and doomy because it's about to storm. So we're just gonna have to vibe with it. On to the next question. How do I even find a therapist that's a good match for me? I'm not gonna go too in depth with this question. I already created a PDF guide for tips on how to connect with a therapist, and I also made a YouTube video going over each step in that guide. So I'm going to link that YouTube video in the description box below. I will also link the PDF guide that I created that has all of these tips, and you can check that information out there just to generally cover the bases. To find a therapist, one, you can go on therapy directories like Psychology Today, Mental Health Match, Therapy Den, Open Path Collective. If you're hoping to use your insurance to cover services, you can also call the customer service number on the back of your insurance card and ask them to send you a list of people who are in network. You could ask a trusted friend or a trusted loved one if they have any recommendations. And you can also look on social media. A lot of my clients have found me through TikTok, and that's like my primary referral source. If you see a therapist on social media that you think you might vibe with, obviously do like a thorough assessment of the content that they're putting out and like check out their website. And a lot of therapists will offer a free 15-minute phone consultation to make sure that you're a good fit. So we want to use our best judgment because we know there's a lot of stuff on social media that we have to use our critical thinking skills about. And there are also a lot of amazing therapists out there who put out content and are still taking on clients. And in the PDF guide that I created on tips to finding a therapist, I also outlined some questions that you can ask a therapist in a phone consultation to, again, further assess, is this somebody that's going to be able to help me with my presenting concern? What do I do if I see my therapist out in public? So general rule of thumb, if I see any of my clients out in public, I am not going to approach them. It is ultimately the therapist's responsibility to protect client confidentiality. And so therapists cannot approach their clients out in public. Now, that being said, if a client wants to maybe make eye contact with the therapist and smile or approach them and say hi, they can do that. They can initiate that interaction. And at that point, I'll, smile back or say hi back, but I'm not going to approach them and risk their confidentiality. And if I do see a client out in public, whether or not they saw me or approached me, I'm still going to bring it up the next time I see them. And I'm just going to say something like, hey, I don't know if you were aware, but I'm pretty sure I saw you on this day at this place. And I just wanted to check in to see if you had any thoughts, feelings, concerns about that, if you needed any time to process. A lot of times, in my experience, people are like, I don't care, and we just move on. And sometimes people might have feelings about it, and that's why it's important just to acknowledge it and see where they're at. Can I show my therapist pictures of people in my life or text exchanges with people in my life? Yeah, we like that. We don't usually ask. It really depends on the relationship with the client. If I have a very strong relationship with a client, I might shamelessly be like, let me see, I want to see a picture. This is where it's important for the therapist to use their expertise and intuitive experience of the relationship to assess when it is and is not appropriate to invite the client in sharing those things. Because some clients might find it very offensive if a therapist were to say, can I see a picture or show me the text messages? Whereas other clients might be like, oh my gosh, I would love to do that. Can I do that all the time? And the final question for today is, can I ask my therapist questions about their life? Yes, and it depends. So you can always ask your therapist questions about themselves. That being said, different therapists have different policies about self-disclosure. And some therapists might be super okay with it. Some might even overshare at times, which is something that we have to be careful with. And other people might be very reserved and very private, and instead of answering a client's question, they might say something like, why is it important for you to know that about me? Or what would it mean for you to know that about me? And they use it more as a tool to redirect back to the client and facilitate a process for the client. I tend to lean more in the middle, where there are a lot of things that I feel very open about, which is why, obviously I post on social media, on TikTok and Instagram and YouTube. And I'm not going to share anything on a public platform that I would not feel okay with a therapy client knowing. So I'm always using my best judgment when it comes to what I'm sharing in these spaces. So for me personally, I do quite a bit of self-disclosure. However, I usually keep it pretty generalized. Like, I might share that I have a similar life experience and I might share how I experienced that thing with a client, but I'm not going to give them the nitty-gritty details, if that makes sense. And now there are also times where a client might ask me something about my personal life where I might say, I usually am pretty open about answering questions. However, with this specific topic, that's something I'm just not willing to share about. And it's not about you, it's just about where my boundaries are. I believe that when used appropriately and only in benefit of the client, that self-disclosure can be a very effective tool in the therapeutic relationship and to help clients feel like they're not in it alone and there's this universal experience that even their therapist has. And if they can relate with their therapist, there's an ability to trust them more and be more open to leaning into the really difficult parts of therapy. All right, that's a wrap for today. This is where I'm going to end this video. Let me know what you think in the comments. Do you like this Q&A format? Is this something that you found helpful? Would you want to see more of it on YouTube? Let me know. If you like this video and you like my content, please be sure to like, comment, subscribe, turn on notifications so that you can get notified every time I post a video. If you like my video and you want to support me, the best way to do that is through views. I am so close to monetizing on YouTube, and the best way to help get me there is to watch my videos all the way through, to share them with other people, and to just spread my videos around so that I can get more views. And the money that generates from social media just helps me to keep putting content out there. So it means a lot if you do support me and help me get to that place of being able to monetize these videos. I do have some ideas for upcoming YouTube videos, including my boundaries as a therapist and my experience with ketamine therapy as a patient who just happens to be a therapist, and just a generalized video about attachment and the different attachment styles. So again, if you want to see more of that, be sure to subscribe and turn on those notifications. And thank you for being here, and I hope to see you at the next one.